Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Puri Rajakacharya Ashtataya Satashriya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Ananta Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Shriharidasa Thakur ki Prem Se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapur Dham ki Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Shabhadra ki Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ji ki Harinam Sankirtan ki Transcendental Book Distribution ki Shri Vishmastami ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Shanyavadi Paschachadeshatari. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. Especially Bhagavata Shraya Prabhu, senior devotees here today. Fortunate to have your association. Today, I believe, is Bhishmastami. Is that correct? On your Sydney calendar, is that correct? Correct. And it is not Vasant Panchami, though, is it? Actually, Vasant Panchami. We dressed the dead is so beautifully today in yellow and green. This is Looks like a Vasant Panchami outfit. Spring. Here in Australia, upside down. Spring is the other way around. But, I see that we're meant to talk a little this afternoon on it, according to the notice board. Let us see. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, text number 5. Is that correct? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The first step in God realization is a wonderful one of those. Every section, every verse of Bhagavatam is wonderful, but this is a section which is especially wonderful. Please repeat. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaraha Harihi Shrotavyaha Kirtitavyaha Cha Smartavyaha Cha Ichata Abhayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavyat Kirtitavyascha Smartavyasche Chatabayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavyak Kirtitavyascha Smartavyasche Chatabayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavyak Kirtitavyascha Smartavyasche Chatabayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyasche Chatabayam Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Shrotavyas Kirtitavyascha Smartavyasche Chatabayam Shotavya Kirtitavyascha Matavyasche Chatabayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvara Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Tasmat. For this reason, Bharata, O descendant of Bharat, Sarvatma, the super soul, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Ishvaraha, the controller, Harihi, the Lord, who vanquishes all miseries, Shrotavyaha, is to be heard, Kirtitavyaha, to be glorified, Cha, also, Smartavyaha, to be remembered, Cha, and Ichchata, of one who desires, Abhayam, freedom. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. O descendant of King Bharat, one who desires to be free from all miseries, must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Purport. In the previous verse, Sri Shukadeva Goswami has described how the foolish, materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of the material conditions of life by sleeping, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. It's one of those profound, incredible statements of Prabhupada. You know, that you get these statements that just capture it fully like this. Read it again. Maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Very strong statement, huh? Amazing. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul, entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. And we think it's nice, huh? This entails the chain of birth and death in the 8,400,000 species of life. The aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the uncivilized man, and then again the human form, which is a chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. This entails chain going through all these various species of life. A vegetable. We don't think maybe. At one time, you may have been a vegetable. potato, a broccoli, a Brussels sprout. Incredible, huh? Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. You could take any sentence practically of this purport. It's like a whole program in itself, isn't it? Every sentence. This section of Srimad Bhagavatam, first chapter, second canto, is just packed with such explosive statements. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account. This is for us, not just for them out there. Think deeply. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. Basic, you could say, the basic principle of our movement is to cultivate, awaken. It's already there. Just to awaken this natural flow of everything we think, do, etc., for the pleasure of Krishna. It's the difference between material and spiritual. In the material world, everyone is at Mendria, busily trying to satisfy our own condition, our own minds and senses, busily trying to make the dream better. As we were discussing or hearing yesterday, from the spiritual platform, everything in this world, good or bad, is a dream. It's not a reality, it's just a temporary phase of experience. But we become so captivated by it and spend most of our energy just trying to improve it with our own definition of good and bad. We have one definition, someone else has a different one, huh? And we fight and quarrel, make friends and enemies, all part of the dream. But without this verse particularly is giving how to wake up from this dreamlike state. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 9:27. Can anyone remind us what that verse is? 9:27. I know that Google Guru can tell us quite quickly, but does anyone know, aside from consulting Google Guru? Google Dasi is not here today, is she? There's one young girl, she's very expert, immediately getting the answer. He was here yesterday. Was it? Is not yat karoshi adashnasi, yat jahosi dadasi, tat karushva madarpanam. This, whatever we do, whatever we offer, whatever we give away, whatever sacrifice, whatever we may do in our lives, okay, we've been given that by Krishna. Maybe reciprocation according to our desire, a separate desire, so to speak, and the karma therein. But nonetheless, it's provided by Krishna. His body, the mind, the inspiration, the remembrance, everything given to us by Krishna. So it's not exactly good or bad, it's what we do with it. How we utilize it. Doesn't matter what it is. How we utilize it in relationship with Krishna or for some other reason. So Krishna's throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we see this thread, practical statements. Yes, we have our ultimate goal, to always think of Krishna, manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskru. But how to honestly come to that? Taking what Krishna has given us and maybe learning or becoming inspired to utilize that in a way which frees us. And that will be discussed a little bit more here. How to get free from this entanglement of falsely identifying self and being captivated by and dragged around the universe from life to life. Whether we're a vegetable or a reptile or an aquatic or a tree or whatever. In this world, ignorant of our real nature. This brought also in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein instruction is given for working on the Lord's account, not our own account. It's like in this material world, Prabhupada often gives the example. A soldier in the battlefield, he's not working on his own account. He's working on account of the king or the government. He's not held, at least not by his own government, responsible that he's killing people or whatever. He gets praised because it's not on his own account. If it's on our own account, we're held responsible. We have to be responsible for the result. So we take shelter of the instruction of Krishna. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. Otherwise, blind faith. There's some sentiment. Maybe irresponsible. Oh, I take no responsibility. God takes it all. Jesus takes it all. I could do any damn thing. Jesus takes it all. No, we have to hear about the Lord. Understand, what is that? Who is that person? When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. And you see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, one who knows this transcendental nature of the Lord also becomes free from the bondage of reaction in this world. It's because Krishna frees us. We can't free ourselves. A tied up man can't release himself very easily. Very hard. We may desire. We have to have the desire. The desire is awoken in this way. Maybe we're getting a little bit of a desire to hear about Krishna. I don't know. It's a reminder at least. We're very busy remembering so many other things. But here to remember Krishna. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds. We may say we're not perfect or scrutinizingly sufficiently. But whatever we have heard scrutinized, we've understood a little bit, share it. Talk about it. I'm sure it's the same here in Bhagavad Shraya. Prabhu joined here in Australia. But I remember when I first came to the temple in London, there's some devotees there who I never forget, and how they shared whatever they had. In the kitchen, we're chopping vegetables. And the devotee there, Narahari, he lives in Australia, you know him well. In the kitchen, he was cooking them. Oh, hey Jeff, have you read the story in the Krishna book? In his Welsh accent, I can't speak it. Krishna, when he killed the Aghasura demon. And he was just talking about that, and it was an amazing experience. And Kishore, Prabhu, I'd come in. First time I saw him, it was like, wow, Krishna's so beautiful. We've just read a description in the Krishna book about Krishna. And it was like, we all sat there listening, you know. So childlike, you could say. But it's just so captivating. Captivates our attention. We may have been complicated with so many things, but this is such a simple formula. Simple formula, simple living, high thinking. Make life simple. Simple is a very interesting term. It may not be the same for everyone. But acting according to the nature or what we've been given by Krishna, playing our part, as Prabhupada, not trying to imitate, but playing our part And then it can become simple, harmonious. If we put Krishna in the center, doesn't matter, we all have different parts to play with. Krishna in the center, everything becomes harmonious, like in a beautiful philharmonic orchestra. Everyone's playing a different instrument, but the sound is very harmonious, very united. With Krishna in the center. Seeing how we're related to Krishna, even here and now, with this mind and body, how to relate that to Krishna. So here's one of the primary secret here, coming together, hearing and chanting. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will always be in the association of the Lord wherever we are. Even if we're in the subway, we're in the office, we're in the prison, we're wherever, in the hospital, in the home, in the temple, everywhere, if we can imbibe this principle, seeing things in relationship with Krishna, wherever we are, we will feel the association of the Lord in various ways. Because nothing is happening, as a previous part of the purport, how Krishna is the proprietor of everything. Not just the temple, everything. Prabhupada would teach us that too. On occasions he would visually demonstrate it by going into people's gardens and turning off taps. And not waste, no one should waste. Keep clean and so visible demonstration. Everything is Krishna's property. The toilet, everything should be for Krishna. Remembering this is Krishna's. Behaving, acting, just learning how to do things with Krishna in the center. Education, very simple. Then wherever we are, we feel the association of Krishna. Even the office, many times devotees ask, how can I remember Krishna in the office? Well, everything about the office is Krishna's energy, provided by Krishna. The intelligence to do what the ability is given by Krishna. The instruments of enacting our desires, etc. That's all provided for by Krishna. Everyone's under the influence of the modes of nature, which is Krishna's energy, being ultimately guided by Krishna in the heart. Krishna's everywhere. The fruits of the work are awarded by Krishna directly or indirectly. Everything is coming from Krishna. Everything. No matter what it is. Even if a person seems to be grossly in the mode of ignorance, that's because they're associating with Krishna's energy. The tamagun. Everything. And they're controlled by that tamagun completely. And then the mode of passion comes in and influences them to act in this way and that. Everything see Krishna in relation to everything. Whatever it may be. Even it's very not so easy. Sometimes we get chastised or criticized, or someone says something that upsets us. For a devotee, Krishna's hand is working to help release us. To help release us from seeing things separate from him. To purify us of this tendency to see ourselves as the center. But to remember that there must be a reason for this. Krishna has a reason to help release me from this dream that I'm in. This attachment. The whole process of devotional service is a waking up process. Wake up. And this is the main thrust of that wake up, together with engagements. We can't spend all our time just chanting. Maybe we can, but generally not. So many engagements are there to engage our mind and active senses, which connect us with Krishna. That's why we have spiritual guides in our lives. Not so much necessary to tell us what to do, but how to do that in relationship with Krishna. Perhaps in this day and age it's often confusing what to do. It wasn't confusing so much in previous generations. Pretty simple what to do for most people. It was something kind of naturally inclined to an activity, and it wasn't so complicated. But whatever it is that we're doing, we've chosen or forced or whatever it is, how to do that in relationship with Krishna. spiritual guidance, how that can be connected with Krishna. And to provide environmental situations like this beautiful temple, this jewel in Sydney. But what makes it shine is when there is hearing and chanting and remembrance of Krishna here. Otherwise it's not necessarily so, you can say, so effulgent. It becomes another place to try to manage, another place to try to get what, my conditional deriving desires want, etc. But no, this is a place where we can awaken our natural, our dormant attraction for Krishna. It's an oasis, as we were hearing yesterday, in the desert, spiritual desert. The temple is particularly, Srila Prabhupada, Nectar of Instruction, describes the temples as places where people can come and hear how they can connect with Krishna, no matter who they are. Connecting with Krishna is not just some formal thing. It's actually a reality. It's immediately, when one sees the deity, a person may not know, what is this? The thought comes, oh, that's very beautiful. If anyone comes here today, they may say, wow, they've got such beautiful dresses. Who are they? What are they? What is it? I saw so many times in New Zealand when we were there, old age pensioners would come in busloads on a mystery tour, and they would turn up at the temple in Auckland. Much to their surprise, some of them were a bit shocked, but many of them were open-minded, mostly from Christian backgrounds. And they would come into the last thing on our list of things to watch or do or hear was the deities, because for many people it was a bit of a shock. And some of them didn't go for it. But many of them took that. They loved the prasadam. They were old people, 80 years old, stuffing down halava and cream. I don't know if they survived after that or not, but they couldn't resist it, It was so delicious. Anyway, better go out on halava and cream. It's a good way to go. And then they would come, if they could walk after that. We would then take them into the temple and open the curtains. That was the grand finale. And so many of these old people were spellbound. They'd never seen anything like it. What is it? What is this? Oh, they're so beautiful. They would say things, many of them like this. Can I take a picture? Like that, They were fascinated. Attraction had been awoken to Krishna. They didn't know. This is the temple. To awaken that attraction, a devotee is supposed to be a walking temple. The more we're remembering Krishna, the more we're hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, the more devotees, literally, Krishna manifests through them. Just like the temple, the more hearing and chanting and beautiful deity worship and the relationships between devotees, it attracts people towards Krishna. That should be our home like that, everything. That's our one golden opportunity, although we're not very mature in so many ways, not very learned, but take heart. Even Srila Prabhupada, of course, for us, you could say, but he was feeling like that. I have no devotion, I have no knowledge, nothing. I just have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. As we know more about Srila Prabhupada and his absolute love for Krishna, but nonetheless, even if we don't have those, you could say, qualification if you wish, but if we're simply attached to trying to assist Srila Prabhupada, the members of our disciplic succession, in disseminating this transcendental mercy to others by our actions, by sharing, being honest according to our level of maturity and sharing that with others. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to, we say preach, but preaching is, words are one thing, but our behavior is the real thing, which we all know if we've had children, how children learn more by what they see and experience around them by what we say to them. That's what really solidifies what we hear. So the temple is meant to be like that. We may not be good at engineering or law or this thing, or that thing. But as Prabhupada, in the early years when he was in Montreal, he was discussing with, I think it was Padumna, a few devotees were there, about expert. What is expert? And Prabhupada said, expert is like this. The calf, the baby calf, immediately knows to drink the milk of the mother. And I watch it almost daily in Vrindavan. I stay in the Goshaw. And I watch the babies being born, literally sometimes, the calves. And within hours, literally sometimes 1 or 2 hours, they're on their feet and they're going for the mother's udder. Prabhupada said, this is expert. He said, a florist, if you know how to make garlands, that's expert. If you don't know how to do it, because you may learn, don't try to do it. The expert means finding out our position and playing it for Krishna. That is expert. Very simple. They sometimes make it a little complicated because of the false ego. Maybe we want to imitate. Maybe we've got some, egotistical desires there. And we see that others are getting recognized and this and that, or whatever. I'd like to be that. That's not the mood of a devotee who understands things, so to speak. And certainly it shouldn't be the mood of the leaders. Otherwise everyone else will follow such a mood. This mood which Prabhupada has of service to all of us. Servant, how to serve. As you do as you have children, you don't treat them like adults, you treat them as they are and encourage them as they are. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Prabhupada said, the child gives us a piece of chocolate. Oh, that's so kind, so wonderful. We gave the chocolate in the first place, but that's what's going on in this world. Krishna has given us everything. Everything. It's not like I'm doing something for Krishna. Sometimes we think like that. Huh? We'll be given a chance to realize, that is my constitutional position, to please Krishna. And not I'm doing something for Krishna. So that mood is it can be contagious. Contagious. Like material consciousness is contagious, like the raging fires. It's very hard to extinguish those raging fires in Australia. By the grace of the Lord, rain may come, or it just runs out of wood or something, but temporary. But the principle is we cannot extinguish that blazing forest fire. It's only by the mercy of the spiritual masters that fire can be extinguished. And what is that mercy? The Goswamis, Srinivasacharya describes how they're showering on the world songs about Govinda. This is their mercy. They're showering down that mercy of, yes, practical instructions, but also alongside hearing and chanting and glorifying the Lord, particularly in this age. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has revealed to the world a very confidential, the Bhagavad Gita talks about the most confidential knowledge. It's not just some words theoretically learned. It's actually much more than that. That confidentiality of the Bhagavad Gita opens the door to prema, or love of God, and Lord Chaitanya has opened the door to that confidentiality. And by bringing this Sankirtan movement, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared in this world for two purposes. To experience Krishna Prema himself, the ecstasy that his pure devotees experience in relationship with him. He wanted to experience it along with the congregational chanting of the holy names. And it's so nice. And we see people without even knowledge, without any practice in taking the chanting, congregational chanting of the holy names. And really, Jiva Goswami says that even, because it's the prime activity, even persons who are fallen, we're all fallen in one sense, but engaged in sinful activities can experience bliss in congregational chanting of the holy name. It may be like a sample, a spray, and away they go into another association, but that will never be lost He is so merciful. Lord Chaitanya has opened the gate, and that spray of love of God is spraying all over the world. And then the Kaviraj goes on to describe Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with his associates, are giving this Krishna prema through congregational chanting to even the most fallen, untouchables of this world. Everybody. It's not so complicated. We may have our reservations, and how we do it, that's another thing. The principle is to share this mercy. And then Kaviraj goes on to say, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is woven a wreath, like a garland. What is that garland? That garland, like a flower garland, has many flowers. And usually if there are different colors, properly, aesthetically and compatibly matched, the garland looks very, very beautiful. So Lord Chaitanya has wove a wreath, or a garland of the holy name, congregational chanting, and Krishna prema, with which he has garlanded the entire material world. And we just have to take a sniff of that garland. Take a sniff of it. And we can lose attraction for the material sniff. We will have a bit of a material sniff probably. That's nice. Like a doggy, huh? Doggies have good sniffers, don't they? Especially in Australia, you really understand that when you go to the airport, right? How strong the dog sniff is. We came into the Gold Coast, when was it, last year, Rasika? Last year? I had no idea. In my bead bag, someone had given me a garland in Malaysia, wherever we came from. And one or two little tiny shreds of the marigold had fallen into my bead bag, without my knowledge. We got taken apart in Gold Coast Airport. That dog got us. He came straight up there, and he sat up there like this, proud as a lord, sat there in his and the immigrant customs guy was like fired up, Hey, what have we got here then? He looked in there. What is this? He found 2 petals of. So if ever you come into be careful, you haven't got any flower petals in your bag. And now, I've got some in there right now, actually. Be careful. And all our bags taken apart. I begged innocence, so they let me off, but they really gave me a hard time, Everything checked. What's this? What's that? What's this? What's that? Couldn't believe it. Material life. When you got that sniff, you get really entangled. If you have a sniff of these things, it just goes. Whew. We have to have a sniff of the holy name. Huh? You have to become attracted. Association of devotees is so important. So important. If we're not attracted, what can we do? What can you expect from others? It's a ritual. It becomes a ritual. I love this word spiritual. Spiritual. If you take off SPI, what do you get? A ritual. And you can translate SPI in different ways. I translate it Srila Prabhupada's instructions, but others may say different things. It's we're here for not rituals, we're here for spiritual. And Srila Prabhupada has given us this opportunity to transform everything spiritually. We'll finish the purport. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. This purport is too big. This is why Bhaktisiddhanta went nothing, but you can imagine on a purport like this. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would lecture for months sometimes on one purport. Because every word, every sentence, every word is so full of, there's no end, there's depth and expansion. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. In the first canto, first chapter, there's that verse there, isn't it? How the holy name is feared by fear personified. Bhagavatam starts with this whole principle, the very questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. Munayo sara prishtoham. Mano Sarapristam, Bhavabir Lokamangalam, Yatkvita Krishna Sampashno Yenatma Suprasidadi. Sutta Goswami glorifies the prayer, the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. He glorifies them. Why? Because they're related to the personality of Godhead and therefore are welfare. They're really welfare for the whole world, for all people. Relevant. They're relevant. These questions are relevant. Just like Parikshit's questions in the previous chapter. What should a man be thinking of at the time of death? What is our duty at the time of death? So this chapter is now just entering into this, answering this profound or this important question, which I guess people wonder about. Maybe not be serious about asking, but they wonder what's happening after death. And immediately Parikshit Maharaj asks this question. Sukadeva Goswami immediately gets into answering this question. And here's the secret. Sutta Goswami also captures this. Yadana jasana yuktakam. Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu mud. No, what is that verse? I've forgotten. In the second chapter of the first canto. Therefore, with one pointed attention, tasmat ekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam patihi, shrotavya kititavyascha dhyaya pujascha nityaja, almost the same as this one. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is praised with beautiful songs, etc. And this is the method of cutting. Yada nijasana karma gwanti nibandanam chindanti kovitas tasya kona katalatim. The method of cutting that knot of material attachment. Cut by remembering the personality of Godhead. It's cut by Krishna. Krishna cuts the knot when we remember him. We tie the knot, right? As Prabhupada mentioned here, with a gang of relatives. We tie the knot. And then we expand it with so many ways. Because it's a natural way of going about it. That's not understood. And the mature devotees, they don't condemn that in of itself, but they help us to direct that towards Krishna in a palatable way. Sometimes we dive in the deep end into, boom, 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 people who have no understanding. We had a little program the other day, and I said to the guests who were there, many of them it's the first time ever contacting the Hare Krishnas basically, I will be your interpreter. They will say, this is prasadam. We're now going to serve prasadam. And one devotee said, what about the Varna ashram system and this and that is going on, and all sorts of things. It's like the people in general, these are not on their vocabulary. They're not quite ready to, it's like talking a foreign language to people. You give a lecture and everyone's English speaking, you're speaking German. I don't think it will digest very easily, unless you speak German. It's like that. You have to kind of know people's language a little bit and be able to present the subject matter in their language, as Srila Prabhupada did. Of course, when we had matured a little bit, then obviously we expected to learn a little bit more of the language, but in the beginning, people don't know the language. It's a special. I remember seeing one devotee in Spain, a brahmachari. He produced this joke book about brahmachari life. So many funny jokes. You ever see that, Bhagavan? I don't know. It's really far out. I mean, it really was. It's good to laugh at ourselves sometimes. It really loosens us up a little bit. We get too serious sometimes. It's good to laugh about. I remember that was one of the most profound things Bhagavan ever said to me. He said, Janananda, you have to learn to laugh at yourself. I'll never forget that. Sometimes, not all the time. So anyway, one of the jokes in this book was really, really, really hit the nail on the head. There was, Harinam Sankirtan was going on, and not so much maybe now, but those days, many people would gather around, fascinated. What is this? These crazy people, they just got out of the jail. What are they? They're on drugs. Well, what is this? Some kind of display, fancy dress. What is going on here? And many people gather around for one reason or another. And so in this cartoon, it showed that it was, and we used to stop, and you may still do if there's a group gathered around, and one devotee starts speaking to the audience. One devotee, gives a talk. So this devotee giving a talk, and he's going straight in the deep end. You should understand, this is a society of cats and dogs. He's going on. And all of a sudden, the next one is all these cats and dogs appear, and all the humans go away. And all the cats and dogs are sitting there with their tails wagging. Society of cats and dogs. It was very graphic. Something which people can catch and relate to, Here, catch this. And you throw a 50-foot wide rock at people or something. They're going to get crushed. They're not going to catch it. Something they can take, like that. Everybody, we were discussing the other day, everybody is a devotee. Everybody has a place, somewhere they can connect to Krishna consciousness. And the whole purpose of Prabhupada, of my understanding, establishing Brahminical culture is that the Brahminical culture is able to connect everyone with Krishna. Even if they're not able to follow Brahminical principles, they can still be devotees and connect to Krishna in some way or another. This is the universal, all-pervasive Sankirtan movement, the house for the whole world to live in. The process, this brings freedom. This brings freedom. We get free. Imperceptibly, we get free from the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is we got a sniff for the material world. So when we get a sniff for Krishna, it's the beginning of the cause of our release. I remember one devotee in London. His name was Bhakti Pramod. I don't think you ever met him, Bhagavad. He was 55 years old when he came in contact with the devotees. Now that was very rare in 1971. Very rare. For a 55-year-old person, you're too old, mate. That was the mood, huh? Practically. You're beyond it. Many of us almost thought like that. But this man and his wife was the same, 55 years old. And he worked in a bank in London. You will read about him if you read in the Vedabase. It'll be mentioned sometimes. He worked in a bank. Prabhupada had conversations with him. He worked in a bank in London. And he also, on Sunday, he had a little store in Portobello Road Market, which in those days was like, a bit of an alternate place in London. And it was a Sunday market. So every Sunday, thousands and thousands of people would come. He had a little veggie stall, fruit and veggie stall there. And the devotees would go, actually, just before I joined, he changed his mind, but just before I joined, the devotees would go every week on Hari Nam in Portobello Road. And we did when I joined too, but he wasn't there then. So they would go every week in Portobello Road on Hari Nam. And this man, I can't remember his name before, but this man hated the devotees. He hated them. He would curse them every time they came near him. And if they got too close, he would hurl rotten tomatoes at them. Honestly. He was so aggressive. He could have been more aggressive, but he would just like that. People would do that. I used to go every morning to the market, and people would throw rotten things at me. We're trying to beg some food. They would throw things at us. It was the way things were. Maybe you can't do that now, maybe, but in those days you could. And so, the devotees would try to avoid him, and sometimes he'd go out of his way to find them, to throw his rotten eggs, not rotten eggs, but rotten tomatoes and rotten things at them, and get out of here, you're worshipping the devil. He was a Christian. You're worshipping the devil. These people are Antichrist, this, that, shouting his head off. One day his wife was there. His wife was a very sort of gentle lady. And then she had the shock of her life when she saw him do this. She said, I don't care who they are, you cannot do this. This is not proper. We're Christians, you can't do this. She kind of, he was a henpecked. He was a bit henpecked. So, all right then. And next week, I want you to apologize to them. What? Yes. Oh no. And eventually he did. He apologized. And the devotees were so kind to him. No, it's perfectly all right. Don't worry about it. They were so... He thought they would be angry or something. But they weren't. And his wife was shocked. What are you talking about? They're worshipping the devil. They're behaving better than you are. she kind of preached to him, And after a while, the devotees would come in every week. He was kind of gentle. He stopped it, And they would come up and they would bring him some cake or something or another. And his heart melted. It melted slowly, slowly. And after a few months, he was giving them tomatoes. Not throwing them. He would give them a box of good tomatoes, not rotten ones. And apples or whatever it was on the stall. And after a while, his wife would sometimes be there, they invited him to the temple, and he came. And after, we got initiated together on Trafalgar Square. Bhakti promote. Amazing. Started with throwing rotten apples or tomatoes. But that connection and the reciprocation of the devotees, you see. No one is excluded from Lord Chaitanya's movement. This movement is universal. But if we're excluding, that's another thing. If we're still exclusive. Inclusive. Prabhupada was inclusive. We can all read the Leela Amrita, what it was like in the early years, early moments, early days. How inclusive Prabhupada is. He was trying to train persons who could also be inclusive and not exclusive. Keeping people away just because they can't come up to the mark. But encourage them like little children to grow up. To grow up. Everyone has their part to play. Everyone has something which can connect with Krishna. It takes broad-mindedness. Brahman is meant to be broad-minded. The process... Don't we finish that now? The Lord is the super soul present in every heart of all living entities. And thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in His creation. Everyone is invited. They're all His children. They're all parts. And preaching, in a higher sense, is understood that the pure devotees is out of service to Radharani. Compassion, you could say in one sense, because her desire is to increase the pleasure of Krishna. And when she sees conditioned souls separated from Krishna, not engaged in bringing Krishna pleasure, she feels compassion. And the pure devotees of the Lord imbibe that same compassion in following the footsteps of the devotee and the servant, etc. But they feel that compassion to try to reconnect others to Krishna, to bring pleasure to Krishna. That's the compassion of Radharani, that she's feeling sad because Krishna could be more happy if the living entities, conditioned souls, were connected, serving Krishna for his pleasure. So this is preaching, to increase the pleasure of the deities, to increase the pleasure of Krishna, by somehow or other thinking how to spread Krishna consciousness, how to engage others in Krishna's service, how to encourage them to get closer to Krishna. Preaching. It's not exclusive, it's all-inclusive. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. We're all engaged by providence, by the will of the Lord. There are many classes of human beings: fruitive workers, empiric philosophers, mystic yogis, and ultimately unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process